with all due respect, Commissioner, all of those changes that you just mentioned involve cars.
Thank you.
They involve cars. They do not involve mass transit. The BRTs, if the BRT system is implemented and running straight up Car Parkway, we can always bring in the traffic from both sides with the existing buses that we have and service the BRTs. They run in 8-minute headways. So if they're running 8 minutes behind each other, and we're servicing it, because right now, that service does not service the south part of Cobb. And even with the addition to the Route 25, it's not going to cover all the service that's needed, but it is a beginning, which is why I applauded what you guys did.
Let me add to the discussion that for the cost of the BRT, you can buy 1,000 buses.
And where would you put 1,000 buses in Cobb County? I've been driving buses for 18 years. I drive the Route 10.
Can I make a comment right here? I think that if nothing else, this has shown that there is a need to have a discussion on transportation issues here in Gwinnett. We have some people there. You can tell where I'm used to talking. But there is a need for the discussion on transportation. We have a lot of people here. As I said, you're not going to be allowed to leave here tonight unless you're willing to volunteer to help resolve some of these issues. Again, I appreciate Commissioner Ott for what he had to say. I appreciate you for giving your time. You obviously have a lot of inside knowledge. You're not out of here yet.
Thank you.
And what I would like is for us to set up a committee who's going to follow up on all of these issues. And we're going to ask for volunteers before you leave tonight. And we've already drafted a couple of you, so you're not going to have a choice. You are going to participate in this. So let's move on to another topic. Obviously, transportation is an issue that is of interest to a lot of people. And it's something that has to be addressed. And I think that all of this shows the pent-up frustration by people who have not had the ability to have any input into what's going on. What is our next topic for tonight, Sharon?
It's an awesome segue, even with Commissioner Ott here, speaking about, what did you say? Because they can, because they wanted to, okay? Mr. Barksdale said, candidates, people to run. And that right now is the call of the day. So where are we with our candidate recruitment? And for any...
Charlie Levinson is on the committee.
Tom,
are you on the committee? For the candidate forum, who's on the committee?
No, we have not had a formal meeting yet on dealing with that. That was sort of a plea.
Of course.
There was a lot of discussion at the last meeting, a lot of expressions of dissatisfaction with government, sort of, a general unrest. And the point I was making is, if you want to take things, people, to the point of doing something, you can't just sit here and express your dissatisfaction with the people who are there. If you really want to take that on, you have to have candidates, and I put that plea out again. Remember, the other side of that too, there has to be money. Candidates and money. If people in this room want to change your political situation, you have to stand up and run, you have to find people to run, and you have to be willing to contribute money and solicit other people to contribute money. People who are considering running for election in this year in the county commission race. So I will let those people obviously speak for themselves when they are ready to let that be known. So I don't. Yes, there is movement and consideration.
What is your name again, Charlie? Last what?
Charlie.
Charlie Levinson. I stood for mayor last week.
Actually, Charlie, you're on the committee for the candidates forum, and Ben was not able to be here.
Okay.
Could you give a report on where we're at, when it's going to be, please?
We're looking at either April 29th or April 30th, depending on where we're at. It's going to be one of two churches here in Marietta. We're still trying to pin down costs and so forth, and that will be the determination. But it's either going to be Tuesday, April 29th, 7 p.m., or Wednesday, April 30th at 7 p.m. Location, exact location to be announced, but it will be kind of close, it will be in this general area.
Thanks. Let me just add to that. Dr. Williams couldn't be here tonight, and a development that took place recently was that he's asking Commissioner Cupid, maybe Commissioner Ott can help with this, if we can use the chamber for a candidate forum. This way it could be televised, transparent, and so forth. I know Dr. Williams is asking Commissioner Cupid to find out about that. And that would obviously make it much broader. And this is a forum just for commissioner candidates.
Thank you, Rich. And one thing too, and some of the candidates, if you would like to make a comment, then I'll get your question. For those people who are interested in new candidates for office and supporting those candidates, if you don't have a $10,000 check you can write, I know a lot of times candidates will look for volunteers who can do door knocking, who are willing to go out and spend their time getting their message out. That's a very effective way to do it. Any of the candidates care to comment about how people can help with their campaigns?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Again, I'm Joseph Pond. I am running for Commissioner of District 3. You are 100% correct. It's finding the money. It's shaking the trees to run a campaign. Not just a good campaign, but any campaign. Right, Bob? Yes, Bob. And I'll use this opportunity to privately or to publicly stump for my campaign. On March 29th, I will be having a fundraiser at the Rib Ranch Barbecue from 5 to 7.
General.
Call the campaign, knock on doors, get places to put yard signs, get businesses where you can put up larger signs, make campaign donations, call your friends. If you have a Facebook group, reach out to your Facebook group and say, hey, I know this person personally, and I think, if you need help in deciding who to vote for, go to this candidate's website. I'm not going to tell you to vote for this person, but do some research before you vote. Tweet it. Facebook, encourage people to go to their website. If you've got an email group, go to your email group. Invite them to come to your church. A lot of churches have candidate forums. Invite the candidates that you know personally to come so they can get before the people and have an opportunity to say, look, this is what I'm about, and this is why we need a change in government. I'm running against a 17-year incumbent. If I didn't think there needed to be a change in government, then I wouldn't have spent the last 2 years, all my time, away from my family, all the money that I've invested in this campaign, unless there's a reason. And I'd love for people to hear why that is.
Okay, and Nathan, what would you have to say that people, volunteers, could do to help any candidate who's running for office? Those people who want to get involved and participate.
Mostly piggybacking on what Cindy just enumerated. A lot of people don't have, especially in this economy, the money to contribute to campaigns. But the sweat equity is kind of what I would say that's needed the most. The social media is real big, but then also the canvassing, the door knocking. You can't have too many people out there with your T-shirt on knocking on doors.
Thank you, appreciate that. Yes.
I'm a shell solicitor, so I ran a snowed out Atlanta during the snowstorms, and I will set up a candidate forum on Facebook, and I've got 50,000 friends, so I would like all the candidates here to give me their details, and you can all discuss in there, say everything you want to say, and make sure everybody hears.
When you said you had 50,000 friends, you just got a lot more.
What I do want to say, I'm Monica Delancey.
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity for us to share. I am running for State Representative District 39, but I actually came here to see about how we're going to get some jobs for my constituents in my area. So hopefully you can share about that so we can maybe be more prepared to get some of the jobs that the Brave State is going to offer. So thank you.
Is there someone here who wants to address that question? If not, I can talk a little bit about that. Does someone want to talk about jobs? Commissioner Ott, do you want to talk about jobs? If not, that's it.
Might have to just get a chair up front. Actually, and the whole transportation discussion earlier, when Commissioner Cupid approached me and talked to me about the flex route, that is about jobs. You asked, yes, it was taken away. There were a lot of cuts that shouldn't have been made when they were made the way they were made.
That's right.
But the whole intent of those 3 routes and creating them the way that the commission did was about jobs. and was trying to provide the folks in South Cobb the opportunity for the potential jobs that are going to be up around the stadium.
One more question?
Yes, hi. My name is Susan McCoy, and just going off of the jobs, there are several questions that I have that I feel like are a little bit more meatier and weightier than what we've been discussing, so I hope I'm not overstepping. Just based on the jobs, I just want to know, Commissioner Ott, if there's been any feasibility studies that have been done, because what I have read and what I have seen and the studies I've read that have been done across the country is that baseball stadiums are losers as far as job creation. All we're doing is we're transplanting jobs to people that are already getting paid down in Atlanta, and we're moving them up 12 miles, and we're paying for it now ourselves. And our taxpayers are going to be subsidizing the income that all those Braves players earn, and we're going to be paying for it at the cost of our schools, at the cost of our police officers, at the cost of things that we need to pay for here in Cobb County. As far as creating jobs, we need to help the people that already have jobs here in Cobb County. And so I want to know what feasibility studies have been done. What was done before the decision unilaterally by the Cobb Commission to bring the Braves players up to Cobb County? What was done? Were there any feasibility studies? And I also would like to know if it's my understanding that there were meetings with Commissioner Lee, with commissioners brought in one at a time to discuss the financials with the Braves so that there would not be an official quorum, so that there would not be a meeting at the Cobb Chamber of Commerce, and I want to know if that's correct and an accurate statement.
Lock the door before
Guard the door.
All right, the jobs, I did not say, that I was talking about the stadium. The project is a 60-acre project. The Braves are going to be purchasing 82 acres. I don't disagree with you about the stadium. I found out the same research that you did. Okay, so there are
Then why
lots.
is the stadium
Can I finish?
coming?
Susan,
I'm
can I
sorry,
finish?
sir. Sorry.
I let you ask the question, let me
Yes,
give you
sir,
the
you're
answer.
absolutely right.
There are plenty of studies, as Susan mentioned, that do not support a stadium producing jobs. There is an additional 45 acres, a $480 million mixed-use project that's being built next door at the same time. There is lots of data currently going on in District 2 right now about mixed-use developments and the other things that are going to be part of that do produce jobs. We were approached as a commission by the folks in South Cobb, and you heard some of them speak today, about trying to make the opportunity for the people in South Cobb to have access to those jobs. There is lots of evidence, like I said, that the mixed-use development and the other things that are being built around that, there will be jobs produced. As for the other meeting, I didn't participate in that. That was meetings that were with the other commissioners. I can't speak about that. I wasn't at those. I found out about the Braves on November 4th at a meeting that the chairman brought me with the Braves. So I can't talk about your other question. I don't know.
Commissioner Ott, was there enough time for you to make an educated decision between November 4th and November 11th? Cobb Commission has taken over a year to discuss backyard chickens. Cobb Commission had 2 hearings scheduled to discuss backyard chickens. From November 4th to November 11th, I'm sorry, sir, but that was not enough time to commit our county for the next 30 years, the county where I want to raise my family. And I want to have my children grow up in a county that is good to them, and they have a good quality of life, and they have good schools and good education and good parks. And I want to have public safety, and I want to make sure those officers are paid so that they stay here, and other counties don't put billboards up on our county so that they can cherry pick those officers that we pay to train.
Susan.
I apologize.
I think everybody
And that's-
here agrees.
Let me answer one part of the question, okay? One thing that everybody is forgetting, and Gary and I had this conversation this afternoon for almost an hour. From day one of the Braves being announced, the chairman had 3 votes. And that was not one of mine. I never announced the entire time what my position was. Commissioner Cupid and I asked for a delay. You didn't say anything about that. There were not 3 votes for the delay. Okay? I never stated a position until I voted. 3 commissioners, which is a majority, did. What I did, and as I explained to Gary, I represented the people that I was elected to represent. I protected their interests. I got a cap on the capital maintenance fund. There were 3,000 privately owned homes that were going to be taxed unfairly. That was removed. BRT reference in the MOU was removed because it was clouding the picture as to what was looking at the stadium. The chairman agreed to independent negotiator for the other agreements that have to be negotiated as part of the MOU. There were 3 votes from day one. It was going to pass. And it is very important for people to understand that. When you have a majority publicly stated, the difficulties for Commissioner Cupid and myself were very large. Okay, and a lot of people accuse me of going along to get along. Okay, I spent the entire 3 weeks, did not fly, spent the entire 3 weeks. I met with 10 business leaders over at Atlantic Country Club, one of them whose company is building the Falcon Stadium, one of them whose company manages parking at Turner Field. I met with an economist, I met with a person from Deloitte Touche to talk about what issues in the MOU needed to be addressed. The capital maintenance fund was the open-ended checkbook. The Braves were saying 70 million over 30 years, yet they were saying the Turner Field needed 150 to 200 million dollars. That doesn't balance. So in my discussions prior to the vote, I demanded a change to the capital maintenance fund, got the cap. Okay, so now the county's liability on the capital maintenance fund is fixed. Is it the best deal we could have gotten? I don't know. There were 3 votes. What I do know is that during the 3 weeks, I spent the majority of my time, and my wife will tell you, one day I got up and I was going to vote yes, one day I got up and I was going to vote no. I spent 3 weeks, and as she talks about with the campaign, 3 weeks away from my family, away from my children, away from my job, trying to represent the people in this room to come up with the best deal that I could. Now, there may be parts of it that you don't like, but I spent the time trying to represent the people.
Let me ask you this question.
Hold on. We want it to.
Gary wants you to speak.
Susan McCoy is about to become a brand new lawyer, and I'm trying to stay alive as an old. But I think the thing that's sort of missed in our conversation here should be obvious to all of us. He's here to listen to us.
Right.
And what's past is past. Now, we were talking about jobs and whether or not we're going to get any jobs with this or with the multi-use thing. I've got something everybody here can do tonight and tomorrow and the next week after that. Write this down. I've got some news on transparency in the Cobb County government. Go to portal, P-O-R-T-A-L Cobb County GA, all run together, .gov. When you get there, you'll find a search box, and you key into that box, open records. The next thing you will be presented with is a page of names and addresses and email addresses. So if you want to ask about jobs for the Braves, you see who you send it to, and you send an open letter, an open records request. It's something we as citizens all can do, and if tomorrow morning there are 500 open records requests there, then somebody's going to hear about it.
You're
at the
warming
next
my
commission
heart
meeting.
when you say that. And Gary, if I can ask you to send me that information, I will post it on GeorgiaWatchdogs.com. And on the GeorgiaWatchdogs.com website, it shows you how to file open records requests. There's a template on there. So if you'll send me that information, we'll incorporate it into the GeorgiaWatchdogs.com website so that all of you will have that along with the instructions that Gary's talking about so that you can use it directly from that website, and we'll make sure that you know how to use it. And as far as your comment, Susan, I'll get to you in just a moment, but as far as your comment, Susan, I agree with you, and that's the reason that I'm here tonight. And I understand your frustration because I'm right where you are with a similar issue.
I'm a little bit more heated than you are. But
No, you don't know me, trust me. Ask the people I'm suing. But
we'll have have to get together.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think my attorney's already talked to you. But I understand her frustration because she's talking about a 3-week period to make a decision like this, and she's correct. All across the country, stadiums are losing money for taxpayers. And when it came in here, it's like a lot of similar economic development projects in the state of Georgia. They talk about jobs because that's what everybody wants. Everybody wants jobs. Everybody here has either been unemployed, been affected by the economy, have family members, friends, neighbors. For a while, my husband was mowing lawns on both sides. Both homes and our friends and neighbors had been foreclosed. So we were doing all 3 lawns. I think everybody here has been that way. And so everybody's interested in jobs, so they use that to sell us on these things. They knew that there would be opposition. How many of you are absolutely insulted, and Commissioner Ott is probably too tactful to say it, but he's probably insulted as well, that they kept him out of the loop until the last minute. They didn't want any opposition. That's what happened in Paulding County. They did the same kind of thing. It's insulting to say we're going to have a revolving door, stand outside the door so we don't have a quorum. We wouldn't accept that from kindergartners. Why do we accept that from our elected officials? That's the reason that there are lawsuits in Paulding and Gwinnett, here in Cobb, and I think that we expect more from our elected officials. Again, I appreciate Commissioner Ott being here. A lot of elected officials won't come and take the heat. It's usually the good ones who show and get all of the heat. The other ones won't come. They do not want to hear what their constituents have to say, and they do these crazy things like the revolving door quorum to get around it so they don't have to face that opposition. But what all of you have to do is take a roll, get angry, like Susan is, as I am, and get organized. And my friend Field knows firsthand from running the Transportation Leadership Coalition that was responsible for organizing the entire state to defeat T-SPLOST. He knows what it takes, how much work it takes of individuals, and all of you are the people that we need. It's all of your friends and neighbors that we need to get involved. All of you are doing the right thing. Commissioner Ott's doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing, Susan. Field gave up all of his life. Commissioner Ott's talking about 3 weeks. I've been working for 2 years on my particular issue, and we're taking it to organizations all across the state. Field gave up his life for a long time to work on the Transportation Leadership Coalition effort to defeat T-SPLOST. And one thing, too, that you were talking about, the new civil rights issues. I'm a member of the Gwinnett Tea Party. I'm very far right. My very good friend Marlene Tillman with the ACLU, you know where she is. When we were at a meeting, she said the truth does not have an R or a D after it. That's an absolute fact. That's the reason all of us can work on the same issue. Transparency and openness in government is essential. Marlene and I can get together and arm wrestle over a policy later on, but if we don't even have the information, if Commissioner Ott was not even provided the courtesy by his fellow commissioners to be brought into this so that he could evaluate it without having to sit up at night and lose sleep for 3 weeks trying to decide based upon very limited information. And as you said, 3 weeks is not enough time to do it when they spend a year arguing about chickens. They're purposefully keeping this information from the public because they don't want the dissent. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make one comment. I don't know on your open records request, make sure you have a to be completed by date, like so many business days, and make sure you follow up. Because I have done many open records requests to the county, and if you don't ask for your response, you're not going to get it. So you need to have within 10 business days, please provide this, and I will follow up with you if you don't provide it, and then make sure you follow up.
They had 3 days.
Or you may not.
Well, they do.
You can set the time, but you need to have a time, or else they may just ignore it. And they may just ignore it anyway.
They have 3 days to tell you to either respond or tell you how long it's going to take, but they have to respond in 3 days. So for instance, one time I filed an open records request for 10,000 pages of documents, and this was when it was still 25 cents a page. I really wanted those documents, but they let me know within the 3-day period how long it was going to take them to gather that, and that's acceptable.
Okay, we have.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
I had a story that was relevant, and I hope to get us off the Bob roast for a little while.
Oh, I think Bob's enjoying it.
But, okay. Moved here in '69 and discovered Rottenwood Creek, which was then very beautiful. Marvelous rock formations, potholes, you thought you were in the mountains. I went to the county to see if I could get them to wiggle a sewer line so they wouldn't dynamite it to smithereens. Commissioner Barrett let me speak for about 15 seconds before he realized what I was up to and said, Mr. Murphy, we're not going to change our plans to save a tree, sit down. So the Chamber of Commerce was running things in those days as well. But I was unemployed, persisted, went to all sorts of county meetings and such, found out that Fulton County was going to do a sewer line across the Palisades down in the river and dynamite those cliffs to smithereens. Got a pro bono lawyer, went to the commission meeting, made a presentation, spoke to Mayor Massell, got that changed. They put their sewage under the river into Cobb County. Ernest didn't want to do an EIS. This is 1970, new thing. I got another attorney and went down to Federal Water Quality Administration offices, regional office, and backed the administrator down and got the red face. They did the first EIS and the county put that line in a tunnel.
Well, I think the point that you're making.
Well, there's more story to come.
Okay. Yeah, I'll give you about 30 more seconds.
Then found the feds were interested in a national park. But it wasn't going to happen if everything was gone before they could do it.
Right.
Got another attorney, drafted legislation that's now called MERPA, short for it. It restricted land use along the riverbanks. Took us 3 years to get it through the legislature. What worked? We formed the Georgia League of Conservation Voters. We went and got one of the candidates in the Republican primary in this particular sensitive district to agree to make us a major part of the campaign. We had the Bartlett High School Ecology Club stuffing mailboxes. As amateurs, we beat the guy in the primary. The next year our bill passed, and when it did, the senator we helped elect stood up and said to Lester Maddox, who was presiding, Mr. President, the man who held this seat last year voted against this bill, and he's no longer here. I wish to cast a resounding yay. And with that, all the senators laughed. So you need to get in there and participate in the game.
Well, that's very true, and I think the people here, those who participate, we all need to go out and recruit our friends, neighbors, and family members because we need more people who are willing to do it. And I believe Sharon stepped out. Field, before we close tonight, and this will be off the cuff because I didn't tell Field that I was going to ask him to do this, but could you stand up and speak just a few words about getting organized and why it's important for the people who came tonight to get involved and to actually take an active role, not just to show up at meetings?
Well, thank you, Sabrina. My name is Field Searcy. I work with TrafficTruth.net, Transportation Leadership Coalition. And this is off the cuff, so I don't know.
You do a great job off the cuff.
I will tell you.
First, tell us the proper terminology of our elected, like you did last time.
Elected representatives, not elected officials. Okay. They represent us. That's why we have a Republican form of government. We have elected representatives that represent the people. Thanks for reminding me about that, Rich. I will tell a story about citizen involvement up in Habersham County. I think this might be a good example to share with them. During the T-Splosh debate, we had a gentleman came to us, and he happened to be involved in his local government. He would go down to the county commission meetings, and the meeting he went to, he heard they were going to initiate some property maintenance codes. So he wanted to go find out what it was all about. Well, he was at the meeting. There was like 5 people there, and he got a copy of the code, started reading through it, and says, look, this says here that we're going to limit development on rural land. You can only have you have to have 30 acres minimum to build a single family home. And you can imagine a lot of people may have bought property up in North Georgia in this county and maybe bought 10 acres, 20 acres thinking, well, I'm going to build a house here and retire someday. Well, this property maintenance code would have prevented that from happening. They would have to have a minimum of 30 acres. So what happened after that, he went and told some of his friends about it. The next county commission meeting, there were 150 people there. He didn't even have to speak because the citizens were so upset about what they were trying to do that the commissioners, voted it down 5-0. So it's just an example of being involved as citizens being engaged in the process. That's why we have self-government, that we, the people, are the sovereigns. It's up to us to hold our representatives accountable to the office that we elect them to. So hopefully that's what you were looking for me to say.
I appreciate it, Phil, very much. And a good point that he made, that this gentleman saw that there was a problem, got 150 of his friends to show up, and as he said, he didn't even have to speak because there was such a mass of people there all speaking on his behalf. The commissioners got the point. Another example of that, also in North Georgia in a county, there was a commissioner where only one woman would always show up for the county commission meetings. She was always there for every meeting, always there by herself. That county commissioner was so used to being the only one there and no one challenging him, when he realized she was the only one there, he thought that he would have fun that evening, turn the camera around instead of him being videotaped. He decided to videotape her, call the employees in, the county employees in, to make fun of her, call her names I cannot even say in a church, because she filed open records. That's what happens when people don't have their friends show up to support them. That's what happens with a lot of elected officials when they realize that they're never going to be held, representatives, when they realize they're never going to be held accountable. And that's one reason why I appreciate, again, someone like Commissioner Ott who will stand up, take the heat, the candidates for office who come in here, who are willing to listen to what people have to say. Those are the kind of candidates and those are the kind of people who are running for office that we need, and we want to ensure that we don't reach the point to where an elected official, and this particular gentleman was president of the Association of County Commissioners of Georgia. He represented all of the county commissioners in the state of Georgia. He was appointed by Governor Deal to the Public Defender Standards Council, and this is the kind of representative we have. So we need to get more involved. I never want that woman to have to go through that again. I want that woman to have 150 friends to show up at every meeting so that that doesn't happen to her or anyone else in the state of Georgia.
Let me just give you one other, back to the T-Splost again. The people that were promoting it, the Chambers of Commerce, the developers, they had about $8 million to promote the T-Splost. And the Transportation Leadership Coalition was just a group of citizens. Really, we didn't have any money at all. We raised about $25,000 total. And what we did was we put a website together. We made signs, we made handbills, we handed them out. We would go to every event we could go to. We went to 4th of July parade. We went to candidate forums. We went everywhere we could go handing out these little handbills. And you can make these handbills up yourself, make the PDF available, let people print them out on their own. People can use their own printer to print them out, cut them up, and just hand them out. So there's things you can do that don't cost a lot of money that you can get the word out and get people engaged in the process. But that's what it's all about.
And that's very important.
I had a question about her feasibility studies that she was talking to Mr. Ott about. I mean, are those things that are open records?
Yes, they are. And one thing that you will probably find, though, is that the feasibility studies that were done are probably several pages long. They were prepared by those people who stood to benefit from this. It was not an independent study because there was not time to do an independent study. I used to work for the university system. I ran a business development center. I used to do those kind of studies, and I know what's involved in doing them. There was not time to do it. And again, I think it's insulting to the taxpayers and the voters for them to come out and announce a project like this, say that it's going to benefit the county economically, that it's going to create jobs, when they have nothing to support it. And you had heard me mention a lawsuit, and my lawsuit is as a result of economic development claims that have no substantiation whatsoever. It also involved T-Splost. Taxpayer money was used against the will of the people illegally. Part of that $8 million came from taxpayers. That's unconstitutional in the state of Georgia. So they were using our money against us, just as with a lot of these projects, they're using our money against us. They're keeping the public in the dark so that there's not time to organize and protest what they're doing. And it's something that we all need to work together. We need more than 150 people at these meetings. We all have a circle of friends, a circle of influence. We need to be dragging them, kicking and screaming to all of these meetings. And if I can drive over here from Gwinnett to these meetings, if Field can give his time, if all of you can give your time, you know people who can do the same. Yes, ma'am. One comment and then we need to close.
You also have to get people to vote.
Amen.
And the candidates appreciate that too, because the candidates work very hard, yeah. We're going to have the candidate forum, and they're also working on voter registration. You'd be amazed at your friends who are not registered to vote. You ask them, they say they are. Trust me, they're not. You need to get your friends registered to vote. One comment before we close.
Okay.
Everybody's tired.
Okay, I'm very tired.
I know you are.
Yeah. But every time the conversation of jobs come up, it leaves the people who need them. We don't have a work population in Cobb that can fill 1/3 of the jobs that would become available at the Braves Stadium or at the stadium that is being built in Atlanta. We need vocational training. We have gotten away from the classic skills of carpentry, masonry, plumbing, cement finishing. We don't do that anymore. We don't teach that. We stopped teaching it in school, so those trades, those skilled trades are not there. These are good job paying money.
Education is one of my big issues too, and I'll just say this before we close, there are going to be a number of other town hall meetings. Common Cause is going to be sponsoring them. We're going to be working with all of these organizations together to talk about these issues. And Susan, one more thing that you and I will talk about when we talk afterwards, that I want all of you to know, California's GDP, their state economy, is 5 times as big as Georgia's. You know, California, 5 times bigger than Georgia. Did you know that Georgia gives more tax incentives, more economic development, taxpayer-funded incentives than the state of California? Now, why is that? Are we creating more jobs? When you go back to your feasibility study, do you know how much we're paying per job? All the candidates running for office right now are talking about jobs. We're going to create jobs. They say they're going to create it with our money. Do you see the jobs? No, you don't. And as far as training and education, our statewide graduation rate, 72%. That's an absolute disgrace. We spend more per student in the state of Georgia than any of the adjacent states to Georgia. They all spend less, have higher graduation rates than we do here in Georgia. So these are some of the other issues that all of you, I know, care about. And we're going to be talking about those at some of the town hall meetings we're going to be scheduling too. We really need to cut off the questions. We will be available afterwards to answer some questions. Did you want to take one last question?
I want to take, yes, the ones who have had their hands up in the back there. Yes, sir. So, will you tell us? You said, yes, sir.
Thank you. I have a question as to what constitutes the $280 million Atlanta Braves upfront contribution. Is that the land that they purchased and the infrastructure that they'll build around it for their own?
Are you talking about the mixed-use development, or are you talking about the initial contribution from taxpayers? On the MOU?
This is a statement that says the Braves are putting up 55% and local 45% for the stadium cost of $672 million. And there's an item, major item here, it says Atlanta Braves upfront contribution, $280 million. But nowhere in the document does it say how to break that down and understand what that is.
What is that document?
The document is...
Do you have an answer to that question?
Is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, I think. And it's Braves, actually it's got a Braves
It was
logo
the public
on it.
release
And it
after
shows
the
the
announcement.
baseball.
After the
Okay.
announcement.
You have an answer to that question?
A few years ago, Cobb County passed a Parks and Recreation bond issue that generated about $40 million, $8 million a year for 5 years, total $40 million. Bond issue is due to hoop out pretty soon. And to my surprise, our county commissioners are going to take that $5 million a year bond issue, no, $8 million a year, 8 million times 5 is 40. We're going to take that $8 million bond issue, it's supposed to be for 5 years, it's supposed to be for Parks and Recreation, are now going to extend it to 30 years. That's going to pay for Hold it. Commissioner Rob, was that bond issue for Parks and Recreation on the ballot?
Aren't you glad you walked back in? We were just about to end it, but you walked back in.
It was on the ballot?
You can end it.
I think he might have the answer to my question.
Yes.
The question was the $280 million contribution from the Braves.
This upfront contribution, yes.
Yes.
What
You
is
know
in that?
what that's constituted by?
Yeah, let me remember. That is part of the funding, let's see if I get it right. It's part of the funding for the actual construction of the stadium.
Okay, so that's their capital contribution.
Yes.
Okay.
And because if I remember right, what they told us is they're floating a bond for that.
Okay.
And that is their contribution towards the construction of the stadium.
So the Braves are going to float a bond, a commercial bond in the market?
That is what they told us.
Okay. And so in that 280 million, I presume the 60 million for the land is included in that?
I don't know.
Well, I think that's an important question because it could be, it covers a lot.
Well, and I
Just put a
agree with you. I think
blanket
there's so many questions because I think even Commissioner Ott does not have answers to all of the questions that he would like to have. We're going to be posting some information as we get it on the GeorgiaWatchdogs.com website. So continue to look back at that. There's also a newsletter you can subscribe to, the Georgia Watchdogs website, that will let you know not only about your COB issues here, but issues in other counties, other areas of the state, because they're wrestling with a lot of the same issues you are. And you'll find that maybe if they come with a solution, you can offer those solutions here. Likewise, if you see a problem they're having there that you don't have here yet, make sure you get out and fight it to make sure it doesn't come to your area. So be sure and go to the GeorgiaWatchdogs.com website. We'll put the information you need on there. Sharon?
As well. Woo, have mercy. Thank everyone. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah, I just want to say to the gentleman who just asked a question about the money, we have committees. One of the committees is following the money trail, which is a big issue. Gary, I believe, is on that. So if you want to join that to help us follow the money, because there's a lot of figures. We have another committee that is attempting to meet with the chamber and some of the big businesses who are backing this right now. I'm heading that committee, and if you want to join that as well. And then we have one that's meeting with the ethics board to find out what's ethical about all of this. So these are some of the things that you can sign up
Everything's
for.
going on. I was going to say that that's, okay, so part of our housekeeping is that make sure that you have left us your phone number and email address so that we will communicate with you on what you're interested in. Rich will be sending it out, and from those of us that have updates, we have updates you would not believe the emails that come from people that find things about not just the Braves, but other transparency issues and other legal issues, like what just happened in Atlanta with the Braves Stadium, the Falcon Stadium, I'm sorry, where they went to the city council because it was supposed to be abandonment of Martin Luther King Drive, and the next day you couldn't turn onto Martin Luther King Drive. So it's everywhere, and we have to be everywhere. So excuse us, you guys. Thank you so very much.
Well, actually, I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight. Sharon worked very hard on putting all of this together.
Were there any more candidates that...
Excuse me. Would you respect the speaker?
We've run late tonight. We appreciate it very much. Thank you for coming. Make sure we've got your email address. Again, the GeorgiaWatchdogs.com website is free, no advertising. It's a public service for you to use. and it's just to increase transparency in the state of Georgia.
Okay.
So Sharon, thank you very much for having you, and all of you for coming. Make sure next time you come to a town hall meeting, you bring 10 of your very best friends with you.
Let's do this. Remember that Commissioner Ott was here. So again, for another action item is to thank him for actually being here, okay? And on your Facebook.
That's